Om. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Punaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahe Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So the topic of the first topic of the chapter, verses 1 to 10, the self pervades the world. And that's what we are all after. And we don't get concerned at all at the end of the day. We're looking at verse 7 of Kalpas, a day of Brahma, Lord Brahma, and a night of Lord Brahma. And in our day, we don't get concerned when the night comes. Quite the contrary. We actually appreciate when it comes to the end of the day, so we can take a rest to refresh for the following day. And if some of us are smart and lucky enough, we might even take a little break in the afternoon, should we have woken early enough to do that, if your routine permits. So we have almost like 2 days within one, or it's like the feeling of 2 days within one day, one cycle of light, and then comes the night. And we don't mind about that. Quite the contrary, we welcome it. So at the end of 4.32 billion years, 1 day of Brahman, the whole thing dissolves and goes for a similar time period, apparently, for a night of Brahman, which means the manifestation of this world and then the unmanifest state of this world, which is tricky to comprehend, but we can see many facets in the world today which is promoting that. And it's horror. If you get into it that way, if you get into it in another way of really getting on with your sadhana and making yourself objective and seeing it for what it is. When a person asks, what can I do about this whole scenario of life, of what's going on in the world? Many people will have different answers and different solutions. In the scriptures, the first and foremost thing to do is evolve yourself. Give yourself the perspective of what it's really about. It's not to be complacent or passive. It's actually a very aggressive, assertive evolution, giving you the clarity of what things are and where your vasanas are and how you have to relate to your world. So there's nothing passive about it. There's nothing horrific about it. Just as you watch a play, a comedy or a tragedy, and you get entertained, and you're very involved in it for that moment, and you shed tears perhaps when you think of the play, but you're not, you know it's not your play. You know where you have to enter and get on with it, and you know where you have to get out. That's the play you have to play, really. So you have to prevent what other people's forces and vasanas are, but you can actually deal and make solutions to your own vasanas and evolve them. So verse 7, at the end of a kalpa, time cycle, all beings enter my prakriti, nature. At the beginning of a kalpa, I bring them forth. So creation and dissolution. The nature of changed world. It's a cycle of birth and death. So I don't know if there's any question. There's no point worrying about the eventualities of what has been pushed forward. It's actually worry about your evolution. That's what's going to carry forward, if anything. Things and collections of things and beings, what? Don't worry about it. Just worry about resolving it for yourself within, and then relate to your world. You don't worry about children quarreling. You just know they've got to grow up. Really, actually, you don't worry about disease. It's only when you've got the disease you worry about it. So the real thing is to keep yourself healthy as possible, as an obligation, as a responsibility, and serve. Gain the knowledge to enable you to serve. So you resolve ourselves. Don't shirk work of anything higher. You can shirk work if it's just for your own interest, but don't shirk your work for service, yajna, ever. It's your opportunity. Let's go. Verse 8.
Prakritim swamavastabhya visrajami punah punah bhutagramam imam kritsnam avasham prakritir vashat.
Renu, if you could read the verse.
Animating my own prakriti, nature, I bring forth again and again all this multitude of beings, helpless by the force of prakriti.
So in the verse before, it says, I generate the beings and bring forth these beings. So it's like saying, the rope brings forth the snake. It's like saying the rope brings forth the snake. It's true, because there's a rope, there can be a snake. If there was no rope, there can't be any snake. If there's no Brahman, there can't be any world, as it were. So the rope is the cause of the snake. I bring forth the macro and microcosm. I generate brings. So animating my own prakriti, nature, matter, I bring forth multitudes of beings. So it takes the responsibility, verse 7, verse 8, I bring forth these beings. In 9, it's as we go on to it, it's that I only animate them. I'm not responsible for what happens. So depending on the position or where you're at in your own evolution, you see it from different perspectives. So in 9, he perhaps softens it a little bit. And in 10, he sort of says, I've got nothing to do with it, in fact. You do it all. So in verse 10, it's like saying, I have nothing to do with the snake. The rope has nothing to do with a snake. We might perceive a snake but the rope has nothing to do with the snake. It's that to do with our perception, our projection. So what one's seeing has literally nothing to do with what it is. First is saying the rope produces the snake. Second, it animates the snake if you're seeing it. So then it's sort of saying, I'm the catalyst. I animate it. And then thirdly, he says, I've got nothing to do with it. It's all in one's complete imagination. So the treatment of that imagination is to build one's Shravana Manana, withdraw, reflect, get off that identification of the world. So the complete story is, if you understand, Brahman has nothing to do with this. But he says, I animate again and again, helplessly, by the force of Prakriti. So there's a matter, we see this matter, so we know it exists as far as we're concerned. We have vasanas. Every night we go to sleep, those vasanas seem to go away. We go into sleep, dream state, deep sleep state. And then in the morning, they all come back again. Our whole world gets projected. We're still the same philosopher, musician, artist, accountant, whatever you are, teacher, analyst, whatever you want to be. So individuals' vasanas take us from one manifest to an unmanifest to a manifest. So that non-apprehension of the Brahman is causing a misapprehension, which we see as the world. So it's projection. One's own mind's projection. Let's read it.
Manifold beings emanate repeatedly in the world. Brahman, Krishna, declares itself as the source of emanation. This phenomenon resembles the emanation of waves in the ocean. A bucket of water produces no waves in it, nor does a pond of water, but the ocean of water automatically produces waves. That is the nature, Prakriti, of the ocean. Waves arise naturally from the ocean. The ocean can rightly declare that the waves emanate from it helplessly over and over again. So does Brahman declare that beings emanate from it endlessly. Brahman's inherent nature, Prakriti, is to produce them. Imagine a rope being mistaken for a snake. The snake arising from a rope is an illusion. The illusion is a misapprehension of the rope. The misapprehension arises because of the non-apprehension of the rope. When you do not apprehend the rope as a rope, the non-apprehension of the rope becomes the cause for creating several misapprehensions out of it. You could mistake the rope for a snake or any other creature. The rope can declare that the potential for non-apprehension lies in it. As long as a rope exists, one may not apprehend it as a rope. The potential for non-apprehension lies in the rope itself. The moment the rope is not apprehended, such non-apprehension becomes a source of misapprehensions. This potential of non-apprehension inherent in the rope is considered its nature, prakriti.
So we have to just think for a moment and think about your own experiences in every day, when sometimes you perceive something as something, but it's not as that. Another person has another perception and sees it as something different. We all have different perceptions of the same thing, but there's a potential to perceive it as one thing and get it, not see it as it is. We all know that in our own everyday experiences. We might perceive the boulder as some creature in the distance, elephant or something, and then you get close up and you see it's boulder. So we all have different perceptions. We all project in accordance to what is known to us. What maybe we're ignorant of what it actually is until we recognize, till we get to it. So similarly, we are that Brahman Paripurna. It's being told to us, but we don't recognize that. We recognize it as something else, and we're projecting this whole pluralistic phenomena as it. So when we even see the sun, if you really ask yourself the question in your days, last few days, did you know the sun exists, but did you actually see the sun? And if so, how? Can anybody say, did anybody see the sun? Did you see the sun yesterday? Anyone?
No.
Did you? What did you see? So what did you see then? Or if you did or you didn't?
I didn't see it last night.
Didn't see it in the night. So that's more obvious. But in actual fact, even to see the night, you have had to have that sun there. But what about in the day? What do we see?
I didn't see it because I'm in the northwest and we never see the sun.
It's even because of the rain you get the sun. The sun is there, yeah. But yes, I hear what you're saying. So the thing is, we know because of it, everything is there existing. And sometimes we might even project, oh, look at that beautiful light there. Look at the sun coming through those trees or something like that. But it's actually a reflection or refraction of the sun. It's never actually the sun per se. And even if the sun is shining in the sky, you can't directly look at it. It'll hurt you. You know, it's not. So it's all these pursuits of the knowledge of the self are indirectly given to build us up to actually recognize what the Brahman is by pointers, because we can't directly get it. So it's trying to explain to us, we've projected this world. There's a rope, but we've created a snake. And each one of us sees this rope differently. It might not be a snake, but the whole world has been projected, just as the whole of the pluralistic phenomenon. In night, we might not see the sun, it's still there. In day, we see the sun, it's there, but we don't know where it is. And in different elements, you know, we go all over the world to try and catch the sun. Some people do. And if you ever see a square in London when the sun's come out, everybody's like bathing in the sun. So, you know, sun catchers. So we're all after it. And in different forms, we feel we've got it. But it's just the projection, the misapprehension. So because we didn't really apprehend the sun. So we got to get back to this Brahman. We're misapprehending the Brahman as the world because of our vasanas. So saying that's what we're doing. Let's read a little more.
Like the snake projected on a rope, The deluded project this illusory world. Like the snake projected on a rope, the deluded project this illusory world upon the reality, Brahman. Just as one does not apprehend a rope, people do not apprehend Brahman. Thus, the possibility of non-apprehension of Brahman lies in Brahman itself. Hence, Brahman declares non-apprehension, referred to as Prakriti, as its own nature. The non-apprehension of Brahman produces several misapprehensions. The kaleidoscopic patterns of beings appearing in the world are mere misapprehensions of Brahman. These illusory projections will last as long as you do not apprehend Brahman. But the moment you apprehend Brahman, all misapprehensions disappear. The worlds vanish.
How was that? That you're frightened to the world to vanish because of our attachments. But the more one grows, the less one is attached to the grosser values of the world. So you can see it that way. Relatively speaking, you move yourself from the grosser to the subtler aspects of life, and the grosser is just disintegrate. Tim.
So when it says that the prakriti of Brahman is its non-apprehension, it's a way of saying that the multiplicity of things we see in the world is a consequence of that. Brahman creates the world through our misapprehensions, because its prakriti is sets itself to be a non-apprehension. Have I roughly got it right?
Yeah. So it's the nature of Brahman that we see. We don't actually see the Brahman. We see the nature of the sun through the trees, but it's not actually the sun. We believe it's the sun.
And we enjoy this non-apprehension because we enjoy all these misapprehensions.
Yeah, because we don't know anything else. So long as we're attached to that, yeah, that's what we enjoy. And that's fine. What's happening? Sorry, Tim, what are you doing?
I see a hat,
Okay.
but it's not a hat.
It's a snake.
It swallowed an elephant.
And it's actually a snake.
A hat, a snake that swallowed an elephant.
This is from the story of the Little Prince. Maybe some of you have read this book. Little book's a very beautiful book. Non-apprehension rises misapprehension. The snake swallowed the elephant. And it was misapprehended as a hat. So life is like that, full of goods and bads. Some of the things we like, some of the things we don't like, some of the things we don't understand because of the complexity of cause and effect. What our role is how do we get out of that, and what part do we have to play with? We go from there. But the misapprehensions, we're okay when we're enjoying it. But when we don't understand what's going on, see, some big event happens and it throws it in our face and we don't understand the cause and effects of what's going on. It horrifies us. But it's all a play of cause and effect. So what's your role? To evolve oneself. One Christ, one Krishna, one Muhammad, one of many that we don't know. They perhaps had good marketing campaigns, but we know them. There's many others which we don't know. That's confusing. 9. Thanks, Tim.
न च मां तानि कर्माणि निबध्नन्ति धनञ्जय उदासीनवदासीनम् असक्तं तेषु कर्मसु.
Ash, if you could read the. Yes.
Verse 9 rather.
Mm-hmm.
Nor do these acts, O Dhananjaya, bind me, remaining like one unconcerned and unattached to those acts.
So the rope is not affected by the snake. The rope is unconcerned, unaffected, unattached, immaculate. It's not affected by the snake. Yet we are affected by everything, attached, concerned, not immaculate. That's what we have to examine. So the rope is like the Atman. The Atman is responsible for everything, like our example as petrol in a car. The petrol doesn't ask to go anywhere or not go anywhere, but it is the prime mover to make the car go or not go. It's like a catalyst. It's not part of the action or the reaction. Without it, there's no movement. So petrol, Atman, animates everything, as it were. It's just like saying if you add C to A and B, there's a reaction, but C stays the same. So everything happens in the presence of Atman, but nothing happens to it. Thus, if you recognize the Brahman, the moment one becomes to recognize the Brahman, the moment one becomes unaffected, objective to all around, one understands that good things are happening, bad things are happening. Some things you're involved in, as it were. Some things you've got to play a part in. But you play it like you're an actor on a stage. Whatever the role is, you've got to play out your obligations, your vasanas. You've got to resolve those. Go get to that core personality. You've got to build that intellect to make those distinctions. But your identification is always clear throughout whatever you do, you act, you feel, you think. The happenings on the stage, on the globe, as it were. In fact, Shakespeare, it's the Globe Theatre. Incidentally, I don't know why. So our play that we play in on the stage as the actor is we are playing on the globe. All the world's a stage. All men and women have their parts. I've not got it right. All the world's a stage. All men and women. What's that? I can't remember. Their parts each have their own exits and entrances. We all play many roles in our lives. So we got to play our part. We'll get in, and get out. Or get out and get in. In fact, he says it the other way around, suggesting there's a process of cycle of life, birth, death going on. So even through all the disturbances going on, if you identify with that core personality, your objective, you have a interested in whatever, you've got a 100% interest in your world, but you're not attached to it. You're objective. You play your part like the actor, actress on stage. You might watch a movie and there's a fire on the movie. There's a fire going on. But if you go to in the cinema or on whatever your screen is, or you hardly go to the cinema anymore, but if you go to your screen and touch the screen, is it hot? Is it hot? No, it's just the screen. It may be quite cool. And suddenly the next scene is a flood. And you go to the screen, touch the screen, is it wet? So everything is happening on that movie screen. Fire, flood, sunshine, ice. Some are skiing in the ice, some are bathing in the sun. Some are dying of thirst in the sun. Some are falling in an avalanche in the snow. Some are drowning in the flood. Some are swimming in surfing the wave. Some are heating themselves with the fire, and some are forests are burning. All is happening in the world. And your stance is to be like that movie screen. All is happening projected on your retina, and you watch it pass by, and you have to go in and do what you have to do and get out. Be disinterested, have that interest. Keep with that core personality and be that sakshi, witness to all that you do. The Globe Theatre, Shakespeare, it's Globe, it's here in London. Actor on the stage. We watch it with entertainment, the play, the tragedies, the comedies. Just do your part on the globe. Sakshi, get out. Let's read it.
These acts mentioned herein refers to the emanation and dissolution of beings covered in the preceding two verses. Krishna, identifying with Brahman, declares that he is not bound by the emanation and dissolution of beings. Brahman remains neutral and unaffected by the birth and death of beings. Just as the ocean remains unaffected by the rise and fall of waves, the ocean no doubt produces waves. Waves are born in the ocean. They exist in the ocean and die away in the ocean. But the ocean remains just the same. Neither the rise nor the fall of waves affects the existence of the ocean. So does Brahman remain neutral and unaffected by the microcosmic and macrocosmic changes occurring in the world.
Remember the changes. 1 minute, one's full of joy. The next minute, it's all down in the dumps, depressed. It's that capacity to stay objective throughout all of it. Because you're looking beyond that core, that you're looking beyond that causation. You don't want to just see the sun in the trees. You want to actually know what the origin of that is. Though you may enjoy it, but you may have a suspicion of what's beyond it. Where's that sun there? It's like somebody putting $1 trillion in your bank account and you don't even ask who put it there. So perhaps we might inquire, when we've given everything in our lives, from the pleasures to the discomforts, how is it so? Maybe it makes us suspicious. So it's like to try and see behind the flood and the fire in the film. Where's the movie screen? What's behind it all? Maybe that suspicion arises in one to get back to that core, beyond the macrocosm, beyond the changes, what's going on. Because it's in those still moments that we have our peace of mind. Let's read a little more.
I was just going to, say that it's really applying to ourselves in our everyday lives. What is non-apprehended by ourselves, where that causes that misapprehension in how we perceived a situation. I guess I'm just trying to see how to apply this to my everyday life. It's really questioning how I'm taking things in, and where it's from.
What you take in? What do you react to it? Is it your mind, your intellect? How do you respond back? What are you obliged to do? What are you not obliged to do? Generally, we're totally swamped in it. Can't see the wood for the trees.
Yeah. Okay. I'm still churning it, but hey. The verse subtly suggests that seekers turn their focus of attention from the world to Brahman. When you identify with Brahman, the self within you, you become neutral and unaffected by the trials and tribulations of the world. You become a sakshi, a witness of all that happens here. The environment and external fluctuations of a changing world do not disturb you anymore. You take the position of an actor on a stage. An actor never loses his true identity while playing his roles on the stage. He realizes that he has nothing to do with the happenings on the stage. He remains perfectly detached from the life on the stage. So would you enjoy absolute detachment from the world when you identify with the Supreme Self within. Dhananjaya, another name of Arjuna, literally means winner of wealth. Krishna appeals to Arjuna to win the colossal wealth lying within him.
So he's won the wealth everywhere else. Now win the wealth from within. All the other wealths are transient. This is permanent. Dhananjaya. What sort of names they offer? Dhananjaya, winner of wealth. Let's go. 10.
मयाध्यक्षेण प्रकृति सूयते सचराचरम् हेतुनानेन कौन्तेय जगत् विपरिवर्तते.
Tim, if you could read the verse.
Verse 10. By me presiding, Prakriti nature produces the moving and the unmoving. Because of this, O Kantiya, the world revolves.
So, by me presiding, there's moving and moving. Everything happens because of my Prakriti. That is responsible for the world. So, I've nothing to do with it, but what you perceive, feel, think, you project on that rope. It's the enabler, it's the catalyst, it's the sakshi. In fact, when you're sakshi, you get a perspective of seeing things. You get the privilege of seeing things happening and being able to assess or analyze things as they are rather than what you'd like them to be, you get wrapped up in, or what you think. You get a perspective, a capacity to analyze it, assess it. Even if you're right next to it, you've got a mental distance within yourself. So it gives you objectivity, and it actually allows you to apply yourself wherever you need in your world with a sense of proportion to whatever the value is. So the more one is objective, more one is a sakshi, the more the ability you have to do that. Whereas often we apply ourselves with a lack of proportion and things go skew up and down. Sometimes it's nice, sometimes it's not. So the self within the sakshi, that's what we can start with. So in 7 and 8, I produce these beings and takes responsibility for saying that. In 9, I animate, so it's a semi-responsibility. And here in 10, do nothing, nothing to do with it. So in my presence, everything happens. So sakshi. So Brahman has nothing to do with it. So everything is happening. The sun in Warrington may not be seen, but it's there still. Brahman's got nothing to do with it. You think it's not there. The sun in the trees is there, but it's not that sun. It's nothing to do with it. It's reflection. We see it as that. One person may see it as a beautiful light. Another person may see it's going dark and doesn't see it. It's a different perception. It's nothing to do with the sun. So we have a capacity to make or mar ourselves, make our success or misfortune. We've got a capacity within us to create or destroy everything. It's all within our own minds. We project that pluralistic phenomena. And when one's involved in that illusory projection, you got to understand we created it ourselves. There's a cycle of that creation, maintenance, and destruction. It's all what we call in nama rupa in the text, in the scriptures, names and forms. We perceive things in with different names and forms. Charcoal and diamond are carbon. What are the properties of charcoal and what are the properties of diamond? Anyone? You may have heard this before, but they're both carbon. It's names and forms. We don't see what it is. We see different things. Anybody use charcoal for anything? What have you used charcoal for?
Use it for barbecue.
Barbecue.
Back home in India, they even brush their teeth with charcoal powder.
That's like monkey powder. Is it monkey powder or something you call it? Charcoal. So for cooking, some people may use it. Some people may use it for drawing. Some people may use it. So that we have different perceptions of what we do with charcoal. Would we use diamond for cooking? I need to see that come up, some invention. Would we use diamond? So they have different, we perceive them differently, but they're yet still carbon. We all know that. So hence the world is made up in full of names and forms. We project those names and forms. Another one is water. Hydrogen is a hydrogen, 2 molecules, oxygen, 1 molecule, together make water. And one's a combustible and one's an extinguisher. But when they come together, they make water, liquid, which is very useful to us. It's got all those components in it. So it's all about names and forms that make up this world. Changing names and forms. Something beyond that. He's trying to see something beyond that. Don't get hooked with the charcoal nor the diamond. You have a problem thinking charcoal and diamond are the same. So ours is to take the position of a sakshi in our changing world, in things and beings, all the names and forms. As we create it, we enter it, we get involved in it, and we can either be a sakshi or suffer it. And the masters of the ancient scriptures regularly told us we are vimudatmas, which is, what, anybody know what a vimudatma is? What's a vimudatma, anybody?
Colossal fool.
Colossal fool. Why are we a colossal fool? Fool, not only vimuda, which is the Vajagovindam, it comes in. Vimudatma, it comes in Vivekachudam, it comes in many places. What does it mean? Why is he calling us a fool?
It's what the Bible says, isn't it? The kingdom of heaven is within you. We human beings don't realize it and we go searching for it elsewhere. And hence we are a fool. We're a colossal fool, rather.
That's a fool. It's right at our fingertips and we miss it because we're looking somewhere else. Foolish. We think the sun's in the trees. Foolish. We think it's not there. We suffer. So Maya, it's not that. We've got to get back to it. That which it's not. We've got to get over it. It's not the waking state that you're in. It's not the, maybe you have a suspicion it's not this, by the dream state. If the dream is not real, and when we awake, we recognize that, how are we supposed to believe that this waking state is real? So it's beyond those conditioned states. Waking, dream, and deep sleep states of consciousness, those are all conditioned. If one wants to recognize the essential being, that Atman, it's breaking down our world, our ignorance of what we project.
In Russia, they have a tradition of holy fools, people who have a spiritual path which they act as fools to show other people they are fools. They're known as holy fools.
The thing is, that may be a good way of showing that one's a fool. You've got to remember, we're fools. Sometimes we can read this and be really feeling wise, but forget we're the fool. So we projected, yes, we need reminders, we need plays, we need stories, we need knowledge, that action, service. We need all of this karma, bhakti, jnana to move on ourselves, to reduce our ignorance, to get out of that cycle of birth and death, to keep evolving. So just imagine you're walking down the street and you have a friend, Mr. Smith, and after a long time you meet Mr. Smith, but you don't understand that's Mr. Smith because they've changed in their appearance. You see Mr. Smith as Mr. Jones. You think, oh, they're speaking, and you feel, oh, that's Mr. Jones. But the minute you see something in them and it reminds you, oh, that's the person I knew, Mr. Smith, the potential for the misapprehension disappears altogether. There is no Mr. Jones any longer. It's only Mr. Smith. So we've got to get into recognizing it's not that, it's something else. Got to delve deep within ourselves to recognize that core principle within us. It's not out there, it's within. We make it, we mar it, it's our choice. So if we understood the Brahman as the Brahman, there won't be a waking dream and deep sleep states. Because we've not understood it, we project the world. Out of our ignorance, we project the world. We keep going through birth, death, in hope of evolving. Let's stop here. We can read or we stop here.
Shall I read the commentary?
Okay, let's do that. Let's read the commentary.
In this verse, Krishna declares that Prakriti, nature, produces the world of animate and inanimate, while he remains as a mere supervisor, a detached witness. In his presence, the world revolves in cycles of birth, growth, death, morning, noon, night, waking, dream, deep sleep, etc. The development of thought from verses 7 to 10 makes interesting reading. In verses 7 and 8, Krishna, identifying with Brahman, declares that he generates beings at the beginning of the kalpa, cosmic time cycle, and dissolves them at the end of the kalpa. Prakriti being only his instrument, helping him in the process of generation and dissolution. In verse 9, he states that he animates Prakriti to bring about creation and destruction, that he remains neutral and unaffected by the cycle of birth and death. Here in verse 10, he assumes the position of a supervisor and shifts the responsibility of creation and dissolution to Prakriti. He holds Prakriti responsible for this world of beings and things. Prakriti supports the cosmic phenomena of birth, growth, death, creation, maintenance, dissolution. In these 4 verses, Krishna instills very gradually the knowledge of Brahman being neutral, that Brahman remains apart from this phenomenal world of the animate and the inanimate. This technique of instilling subtle knowledge through easy steps is called Arundhati Nyaya. In Arundhati Nyaya, the husband points out a tiny star, known as Arundhati, to his bride through stages using the branch of a tree as a pointer. Krishna adopts this method to instill the subtle knowledge that Brahman is a silent witness of all that happens in the world.
So we'll elaborate on that next week. With examples, nice example. Just to let you know, from the 22nd of January, I will be at the Academy for a month. So if anybody wants to come, you're welcome. There's various retreats going on, as you know.
Thank you.
Hari Om.
Thank you.
Hari Om.